All right, welcome everyone. My name is Alex Gardner. I'll be your instructor for this class. So this is CSC 150, Introduction to Computer Science, section D01 in spring 2016. So normally, of course, as it's noted in D12, we would normally meet in room 100, Tuesday, Thursday from 1 to 2:15. But unfortunately, I'm not able to be present for those classes, so we're going to delay starting our in-class meetings until next week. So I'm going to cover a couple of concepts in this PowerPoint, which are noted here on the agenda. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself, then review the syllabus, talk about how to succeed in this class, getting and using the textbook, communication, introduction survey that we're going to take on day 12, and talk about the schedule going forward. So the first thing, I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself so you can understand some of my background. So I'm a graduate student here at DSU studying my master's degree in applied computer science. I completed my undergraduate here at DSU as well. I studied cyber operations for that. I'm originally from Hector, Minnesota, so it's about three hours away from here. I worked a couple internships during the summer. The first one relating to computers was at Wells Fargo Retirement Technology. Worked with a lot of Java and enterprise framework, things like that. And then this last summer, I worked at Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico, working on a lot of cool security projects that were fun. And the last component is I'm a CyberCourse scholar student. That means that the CyberCore program provides a full scholarship, pays for me to go to school, and things like that. If you're interested in any of the CyberCore stuff, I'm a good person to talk to. Or if you're interested in any other extracurricular activities here at DSU, I've done a bunch of other stuff. I'm active in computer club, the security club a little bit, do student senate, so lots of good things for people to do. I suggest that you find some things to do here while you're at DSU. So, moving on. First thing we're going to do is talk about the syllabus. So I'll pull that up here. So to find the syllabus, you would navigate over to our D12 page here. If you have any questions about using D12 or how anything's set up, feel free to ask. Send me an email later. I'll just, for the time being, assume that you know what's going on. So you navigate over here to CSC 150, and the syllabus is in the Getting Started section here on the homepage. Now, I already have it open, so I'm just going to switch over here and find it. So this is the syllabus. So already said CSC 150, 3 credits. This is spring 2016. So these two dates are important. If you decide that you don't want to be enrolled in CSC 150, you do need to decide that by January 20th to receive a 100% refund. I'll pull up the calendar here so we can take a look at when exactly that is. So you need to decide that you want to drop this class by January 20th, which is right here. So that was 1 week and a week and a day from now. And you need to decide, and if you feel your performance isn't doing very well in this class, you have until April 5th to withdraw. So the difference between dropping and receiving a 100% refund and withdrawing is when you withdraw, you, instead of getting an F and it necessarily affecting your GPA, you instead take a W and that doesn't affect your GPA, but you don't necessarily get a refund. So some things to keep in mind as we're going through this class. So our meeting times we talked about earlier. So things that are important here, office hours by appointment only. So if you want to schedule a time to meet with me, you should send me an email and we can work something out. I do have an office in DSU. It's room 200 up on the second floor, but I'm usually not in it and I don't have any times that I'm specifically going to be in it. So if you want to meet with me, by all means send me an email. I can make some time. I'm usually very available, but you do need to schedule that ahead of time. So what are we going to do in this course? So the catalog, the DSU catalog description says that this is an introduction to computer programming, focus on problem solving, algorithm development, design, and programming concepts. Topics include sequence, selection, repetition, functions, and arrays. So in this class, we're going to be using the language C to program. It's not necessarily the easiest language to get started in, but what it allows us to do is learn about how a computer actually functions and how it actually processes data, versus things being abstracted away. And that's a term we'll talk about during this class, is abstracted, and that's a very important component of computer science. So, course prerequisites, this is 150, so we're going to assume that you have no knowledge of computer programming. Hopefully, we'll be able to establish a good foundation for either your understanding of computer science or your continued education in the computer science world. So I do expect you to understand how to generally use a computer. Again, if you have any questions about D2L, this is a freshman course, so if you haven't used it for that long, feel free to ask. I can usually answer most questions. So, course materials. I am actually going to require a textbook. I noted more in my D2L news post, so take a look at that. I also go over quickly how to acquire this textbook later on. And I'll cover a couple other details. So, a couple of other places, if you don't like how the textbook is written, you can navigate to some of these websites and they can provide you a couple other options. So, classroom policies, attendance and makeup. So, one of the things that's really important in this class is it is an on-campus class most of the time, and that means that I will be giving in-class assignments. We'll be working on things in class, and there'll be components of the class that you won't be able to make up if you don't attend. So all of our quizzes and tests will be in class, things like that. And again, there will be in-class assignments. So I highly suggest coming to class. One of the points of coming to class is for you to ask questions, and it gets really hard to ask questions if you're not in class, you're not attending. It's just really great if you can come to class. But I understand if you can't, if the roads are icy or something like that, if there's family health concerns, of course we can work through all of that. You just have to send me an email and we can continue to think about that as the course goes on. So on that note, makeup work is generally not accepted unless your absence is approved prior to the due date by the instructor. So that's me. But don't send me an email one day before saying you have something, or I should say 1 day before the due date saying you have something you need to go to. Instead, please I'd really like a week notice. I can probably make do with less under negative circumstances. But again, try and give me some sort of notice before the due date comes, as far in advance as possible, and continue nagging me about that you're going to be gone, because I sometimes forget and need a reminder sometimes. So ADA statement, if you have a disability, make sure you talk to Keith Bundy. He's in the TC Underground, or send him an email here. So academic honesty statement, this is a big thing in this class. So one of the things about programming is almost everything that we're going to do in this class has been done one way or another before. And it gets really easy to just say, I'm going to go out on the internet and I'm going to find the code that solves this problem that we're working on, and I'm going to take that code and I'm going to use it. Or I'm just going to ask one of my friends who had this class before what he wrote for the code and just take that code and call it your own. And that goes very contrary to what we're trying to do here in this class. So sometimes the assignments might seem hard. You might not know what to do, but it's more important to try to figure it out on your own, to develop the learning ability to learn how to program, than it is to actually achieve the right result. I would much rather see you give it your best effort and submit something that's your own work than submitting a fully completed assignment that you did no work on. Now, in the past, I have done this before. I've failed people for not doing their own work on assignments, and it's not something I enjoy doing, but just keep in mind that I do take the time to look at assignments to think to myself whether or not you actually completed this assignment yourself. So just do your own work and we won't have any problems. This basically just says if you're disruptive, I can kick you out. So in this class, I don't generally think that I will use the tablet component that much. I think I might have you draw a couple pictures, but aside from that, all I require is that you have a computer present during class. We will do programming during class, And in order to do that, you will need a computer that is functional, I guess. So use your DSU email when contacting me. Don't use D2L's email. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. So email response times, I should respond within 24 hours. Usually I'll get the email on my phone. I might not look at it right away, but I will make a mental note that I need to respond to that later. Weekends and holidays will be a little bit longer. Also feedback on assignments, quizzes, pretty much everything that we do in this class. I should get back to you within a week. If I don't, nag me and I'll work on it harder. So, course goals. Again, we're writing computer programs in C. We'll talk more about what C actually does when we meet next Tuesday. So our program is going to take input and output. So our program will read something from the user, and they will probably do operations on that input, and that program will continue to output that modified input. So declare and use user-defined variables. So variables are variables store values. So we say, let's say we want to store 10 in A. So we would say A equals 10, and that will take 10, and it will store it in A, and then we can reference that variable later. We can also assign that variable different things, and so on and so forth. Very, very much like we can in math. So declare and define and call user-defined functions. So functions are small components of programs which do individual tasks. We are going to do arithmetic, relational, and logical operators. So arithmetic, like add, subtract, multiply, divide. Relational, like less than, greater than, or equal to. And logical, like and, or, and not. And then in our program, we need to decide whether to do things. That will be accomplished by using some different control flow components. And finally, we will look at using lists or arrays of values. So think of that as groups of values. So instead of having a single variable with a single value, we can have a single variable with essentially multiple values. So that becomes very important. Don't worry about these concepts right now. We will explain them and talk about them in great detail in the weeks to come. So assessments, we're mainly writing computer programs in this class, so that's the most heavily weighted part. We'll look at our grading scale a little bit later, but that if you are very good at writing programs and you work really hard at that, this class should be pretty easy for you. But there are also a handful of tests and quizzes. We'll talk about that later. And then that's our final exam time. Grading policy. So we are going to actually have 2 tests. I mistyped that. So we're going to have 2 tests for a total of 60 points. We're going to have 1 midterm and 1 final. During this class, we also take the DSU Tech exam, kind of for DSUs to decide if you learn something in 105 and 150. We're going to have approximately 8 assignments, might increase or decrease depending on student performance. We're going to have 6 quizzes throughout the semester, and we're going to have some participation points associated with the reading exercises and the Zybook. We'll talk more about that later. So this is a grading scale, so it's pretty straightforward. And that's the tentative course outline. So towards the end, this usually ends up being compacted. So we usually do finish up by about week 12 or 13 or so. And we will probably end up spending the very last 3 weeks or so working on a big project, working on something like that, in addition to taking our final, maybe taking another quiz or something like that. Talking about some other topics and maybe languages other than C, something that's kind of enjoyable. So that's the syllabus. We're all done with that. Let's go back over here. So how to be successful in this class. So this page is very important. So the first thing is asking questions. So send me an email or talk to me after class. Again, if you don't understand something, if something doesn't make sense to you, if you think I'm being unfair or something like that, send me an email. We can either get together and talk about it if you feel best in that environment, or we can continue emailing about it. But it's important that you ask me questions or tell me if you don't understand something, because if I don't know that you don't know something, then I can't help you learn it. If I'm going too fast, if you want me to cover something again, cover it in more detail, cover it from a different perspective, just let me know, and I'm completely willing to change the course of the class to fit your needs. So here's where you really should try. These 2 points are something that could take your grade from a C to an A right here. So it doesn't mean you have to write down or pay attention the entire class, but write down a few notes about the concepts we covered during class. Just jot down like what we did today. Maybe keep a journal saying we did this on this Tuesday and we did this on this Thursday. Just kind of tracking where we're at in the class. So once we're done with the class, you can practice and think about those concepts. Now, I'm not saying you have to take hours and hours and practice all the time. I'm saying take 5 or 10 minutes, think about, even if it's just thinking about it or researching about it online or something like that. Just think about the concepts that we covered in class. I promise you it will help you immensely in your understanding of C, and not only that, but your grade performance in this class. And finally, start on assignments early. So if you don't start on assignments early and you don't ask questions, you're going to find that you just don't understand how to complete the assignment. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to copy off my friends or whatever. And then I catch you cheating and I fail both of you. So starting on assignments early, thinking about how you would complete the assignment, how you would use the concepts that we've learned in class to complete that assignment, and asking questions on the concepts that you don't cover is exceedingly important. Now, when you start an assignment early, you can start on an assignment, you can come to class, and you can be like, okay, I'm at this point in the assignment. Can you talk to the class a little bit about how we get farther in the assignment? And that really is something that will improve your performance on assignments. So, textbook. So, let's go over here. So we're using this textbook called a zybook this semester. So these are the instructions that you need to register for the book. You need to go to zybooks.com and enter this code right here. This code is posted, on D2L. So again, what you need to do is take this URL, go over here to zybooks.com. Up in the top right corner is a button called Create Account. You fill in all this information. Make sure you use your Trojans or Pluto at dsu.email. So ajgartner@pluto.dsu.edu. And then push Create Account. And then on the next page, there should be a box which prompts you for this code. Take that code, put it in the box, and it will subscribe you to the book that we're using this semester. So this book is completely online. One of the things that I think it does really well is inside of the text, it has examples and challenges that require you to think about the text that you're reading and really help you grasp the concepts instead of just presenting you with information. So let's take a look at this. So I'm just going to look at this first section right here. So when you're going through this is the very first section of the book. You could look at an activity like this. So this is a participation activity. Now when you come to this, you hit Run Program, and this web page will guide you through what's actually happening here. And you can see very, very straightforwardly what is going on inside this program. It will show you line by line. Now, when I said in the syllabus that I grade the reading activities in the zyBooks, this is the component that I'm grading. So these participation activities, and later on the challenge activities. So when I assign a chapter and a section of reading to complete, I expect that you go through and that you interact with all these activities and you see the demonstration of how programs or computers work. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward on how the book works. I will say this: if you want to keep the book past the class, you should go to the chapter and push Print Chapter. You can print out the chapters, just save them as a PDF or something like that, and you can keep them forever. This book will expire 2 weeks after the semester is completed, so if you want to do that, I suggest you do it at the beginning of class. So as we're going through, you'll see a couple of sections are optional. So you'll see, like, once we get to chapter 2, it will say optional next to the section name. And that's completely optional for you. There will be no points assigned to that chapter. If you're more interested on what's going on, you can feel free to read that chapter or do anything else like that. But again, they're completely optional. So, and when we get down to chapter 8, everything after that is optional as well. Those concepts will be covered further in CSC 250. So that's the textbook. I think I covered a little bit more here. Yeah, so I'm not going to have any reading assignments for you this week, but I will have reading assignments for you next week. And generally speaking, the concepts that we cover in the weekly reading will be the topic of the lecture the next class period. So I might assign a reading, let's say Thursday, and then I'll discuss that reading on Tuesday, and then another reading on Tuesday to discuss on Thursday, and so on and so forth. Now, some weeks we'll maybe have a test or something, and that will mean we won't have a reading, but generally speaking, that's the pattern that you should expect. So if you want to get ahead in the class, log on, purchase the book, and start completing these activities. You could potentially complete all of chapter 1 in, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes. Wouldn't take that long. So if you want to get ahead, I mean, by all means, just go through and read the entire book and interact with the activities. I think it's a great way to learn, and I hope that you enjoy the book. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about communication. So do not use D2L email/messenger. So I'll show you what not to do. So this is Messenger right here, or that's my messages. This is my Messenger, or pager, or whatever. Don't do this. Don't use any of this. Don't look at this ever. Or there's pager too. This is it's called pager, not messenger anymore. But you can like message people, and you can like communicate with people on D2L and all of that. You can compose an email. Don't do any of that. And I say that because when you compose an email, all I see is a little notification up here with all my other notifications. And this gets filled up with the classes that I'm taking for my graduate degree with other things, and I might not necessarily see your email in this list, or D2L email, I should say. So don't use that. So instead of that, make sure you use Outlook in your either Trojans if you're a student here from last year, or sorry, Trojans if you're a freshman, or Pluto if you're a student from a while ago. I don't remember when they switched from Trojans to Pluto. And use Outlook to send that email. So try and put CSC 150 in your subject line. So I'll go over here to Outlook really quick. Just so you know, you can always just go to a web browser to open up Outlook. You can say webmail.dsu.edu, and that will open up webmail, which is the UI that I like the most. So whenever you're sending your email, remember it's alexgartner@dsu.edu. And then in the subject line, I'd like it. I don't require it. It's whatever. But try and put CSC 150, just so both you and I know which class we're talking about. So prefix it with this, and then say question or assignment 6th grade or something like that. So before the actual subject, try and put that tag, if you will. So one thing that I would like you to complete as soon as possible, I think I have it due next Tuesday, is the introduction survey. So navigate on over to D2L, click on surveys, and then click on introductions and complete that survey. So that ends January 14th. So that is actually Thursday, sorry. So that ends Thursday at midnight. So please try and complete that survey. Ask you a few questions about your major, where you're from, what your interests are, what your concerns are for this class. It's just good information for me to have on hand when you're going through this class. So do complete that by Thursday. So the schedule going forward is there will be no class on Thursday. We will begin our in-class meetings on Tuesday in room 100 from 1 to 2:15 again. this is going to be the only video for this week. I decided it'd just be better to be in class to cover the content that we're going to cover. So that's it. One final thing that I forgot to cover earlier. I don't know if this is the D2L default, but this is something that's kind of important. So one thing that you should check is go to your notifications settings in my settings on D2L and make sure that they have an email address for you here that you check. So whenever I'll open up a new tab here. So our class. So one of the things I usually do is I post news items here on D2L. So these news items contain relevant information to upcoming assignments or changes that I'd like you to see. So normally what will happen is when I post a news item, it will also forward out to your email. But what you can do is, if you want other emails to be sent, you can send it to a different email that you actually check. Or at the very least, you should make sure that your system email is in here so you see everything that I post here on news in this email inbox. And if you want other notifications, I find it really important that you select these. So you select grade, I can't select that. Grade item released, grade item updated, news item updated, new item available. So that will send you email updates when I post a news. That will send you email updates when I post your grades. And then it's not relevant for this class because we're in class, we don't use discussions. But if you were in a class that needed discussions, it's kind of nice to have email sometimes. So by all means, add more items if you want. I think it's really good if you are notified in more than one spot, just so you know when things are happening and so you don't miss anything. Because I personally prefer to log into webmail a lot more often than I do to prefer to log into D2L. So that's all I have for you today. Again, questions or comments, send an email to alex.gartner@dsu.edu. I look forward to working with you this semester. That's all I have for you today. Thanks.